Hello, we are Team 11, and we are presenting on Bill Drayton, founder of Oshkosh and known as the grandfather of the term social entrepreneurship. This presentation is presented by Brian, Monica, Billy, and myself, Tanner. So just a little about Bill. He was born in 1943 in New York City. Leadership in social causes run very deep through his family tree. His family's long history involved in social issues helped mold him into the man he is today. And both of these last two will become very apparent as this presentation goes on. Two quotes that really stuck out to us as Team 11 are that social entrepreneurs are not content just to give a fish or teach how to fish. They will not rest until they have revolutionized the fishing industry. The other quote that really stuck out to us was that young people must have the ability to change their reality. So in this presentation, we aim to answer a few questions listed here, along with many others. First, where Bill came from. What are his educational background? What are his motivations for furthering social entrepreneurship? What is his lasting legacy on social entrepreneurship? And finally, what are his accomplishments and awards? As mentioned earlier, Bill is known as the godfather and creator of the term social entrepreneur. So as mentioned earlier, public service runs very deep within Drayton's family. Many of his distant relatives were early anti-slavery abolitionists, along with women's rights leaders in America. Bill Drayton continued this leadership when he attended high school at Phillips Academy. Here he created the Asia Society, which soon became the most popular student organization on campus. So Bill has many motivations for being involved in social entrepreneurship and different social issues, but a major one that we mentioned earlier was his family's long history of being involved in these causes. His family's long history, coupled with his education and his own history, created the perfect storm for his revolutionary ideas revolving around social entrepreneurship. Bill really liked the idea of individuals being the change makers in society. This is at the core of entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship that is, and it can really be seen in his quotes and different contributions to social entrepreneurship.
Hello everybody, my name is Snokobal Ormonov. I'll be presenting Bill Dyson's educations, careers, experiences, and awards. Let's start with education. Bill Dyson attended high school Phillips Academy. This is located in Massachusetts, and this is co-ed education university preparation school for boarding and day students of grade 9 to 12. And it's really prestigious high school that only accepts 13% of applicants. After he finished his high school, he gone to Harvard University and got his Bachelor of Arts degree in 1965. Harvard University is a private Ivy League research university in Cambridge, Massachusetts, that established in 1635. It's one of the famous schools in the United States. After he finished his Harvard degree, he moved to England to get his Master of Art degree in 1967 from Oxford. A specific school he got in Oxford was the Balliol College. It's one of the constituent college of the University of Oxford, and it's one of the oldest colleges in Oxford. Finishes his Master of Arts degree in Oxford. He moved back to the United States to get his Juris Doctorate in 1970s from Yale Law School. Yale Law School is part of Yale University, located in New Haven, Connecticut. Established 1924, it's been top-ranking law school in the United States by U.S. News and World Reports. Now we're going to move on to his educations. Bill Drayton became a manager in management consulting, working for McKinsey Company as consultant for almost 10 years. McKinsey and Company is an American management consulting firm founded in 1926 by University of Chicago professor James O. McKinsey. The primary job is advice strategy management, corporations, government, and organizations. Bill Drayton became assistant to administration of Environment Protection Agency during Jimmy Carter presidency. While he was in that position, launched a lot of emissions legislations. It's a market-based approach to controlling pollution by providing economic incentives for reducing emission of pollutants. And then after he was in that position, he gone back to become visiting professors in Harvard University and started universities. He trying to pass on his social entrepreneurship to future generation of entrepreneurs. Experiences. He created a Shoko table while he was studying in Harvard by bringing prominent of government, unions, and church leaders for off-record dinner at which he can ask how things really worked. And also he was funded Yale Legislative Service while he was studying Yale Law School. Awards. He was elected early McKinsey Fellow for his work, including funding Oshoka and Invention for Public. McKinsey Fellowship is the prize awarded annually by John D. and Catherine T. McKinsey Foundation, typically between 20 to 30 people working in the fields who shows extraordinary original dedications for their career, pursuit of market capacity for self-directions. And then he received National Public Service Award. National Public Service honors individuals who make a standing contribution and who accomplish model for exploring public service, who's dedicated to public goods now and in the future. And then Drayton also won a Spanish Prestige Prince of Austria award. This is awarded to individual or the organization from around the world who make a notable achievement for science, humanitarianism, and public affairs. And then after a while, he accepted John W. Garner's Garnership Leadership Award. This is presented to awards each year to individuals who leadership in or nonprofit communities has been transformative and who have mobilized and unified people, institution, and caused to improve quality of life in our planet. And then last award he was nominated for was a Melbourne College Center of Social Entrepreneur Vision Award. This is designed to recognize leadership and vision to a world of social entrepreneurs. Each year, award to contribution to leaders who shares commitment to idea, embraces certain mission to prepare an individual to lead to life of social change.
So now we're going to talk about how Bill Drayton is innovative. So first off, his innovative spirit was kind of first kindled when he was traveling in India with a group that he was in college with. Now, they were traveling around with a guy by the name of Vinoba Bhav. And what Vinoba was doing was he was traveling around to these small villages, basically trying to get them to donate their land, all of their land, to him, and then him and his organization would redistribute it so that those less fortunate who didn't have any land or were very poor to begin with would have something to grow with. So Drayton got to travel around in India with this guy, and it led him to ask himself, what are you going to do about closing the north-south gap, both in India and in other countries. That kind of got him started on his social entrepreneurship journey. So before Ashoka, which I'll address soon, but as you've heard, Drayton worked at McKinsey and Company, and while he was there, about a third of the work that he was doing was for commercial clients. So not with social ventures or creating change in the world, but just regular business. He credits that time working at McKinsey and Company with teaching him about how businesses operate and how the economy runs, because he's a firm believer that he cannot make effective change in the world without at least first understanding how the cogs of business are running. After McKinsey and Company, he worked at the EPA under the Carter administration. He also did some very innovative things while he was there. Generally, what he was trying to do while he was there was find ways to decentralize the processes and the power in the EPA. What that was doing was cutting costs, which was a good thing, reducing regulations, which can be a good thing, and then also eliminating redundant regulatory agencies or redundant regulatory processes that were just inefficient. So he brought a lot of innovation to the EPA and government during that time. So now we need to ask, what is Ashoka? So Ashoka is essentially an organization that tries to identify, thoroughly vet, and then give support to social entrepreneurs. So they go all over the world. They look for people that have great ideas. They make sure that that individual is a sound mind and has this idea fully developed enough to actually make it happen. And kind of Bill Drayton's central vision for Ashoka and really for social entrepreneurs is that they have to fundamentally change how something is done. They've got to radically alter the status quo. He talks about in some of his personal correspondences that the boundaries are just artificial. And like he was doing in the EPA during his time in government, he believed that decentralizing things and creating smaller hubs of power or smaller hubs of operation right there where you wanted to affect change was the more appropriate way to go about that. So those are kind of his founding ideas for Ashoka. Also early on, Ashoka's strategy was to not only get funding or get investments from private donors or philanthropists, but also from institutional foundations. And historically, at the time, institutional foundations were not getting involved in these capital building ventures. They'd rather give money to a well-established organization that's going to feed the poor or help homeless people find housing. But what Bill Drayton was looking to do was create capital in communities and actually kind of change them from the ground up. So Ashoka has a pretty unique selection process for finding their social entrepreneurs that they're going to take interest in. And Bill Drayton had a big hand in this. The first step is just to be nominated by a highly trained nominator. So they go all over the world looking for candidates, but the first step is to be nominated by one of them. After that, you get visited by an Ashoka representative. They'll come in, they'll do some fact checking and some personal interviews of the candidate. At the end of that short time, they have to make a personal judgment call on whether or not they think this social entrepreneur is someone that should go to the next level. If that person approves them to go on, you have a second reviewer come in, and Ashoka always insists on the second reviewer being from a different country because they're trying to avoid national biases. So assuming that you get past the nomination stage and past the two reviewers, the fourth step is to bring in a highly trained Ashoka staffer who conducts a 5 to 6 hour life history interview. So imagine sitting down and they kind of get to the roots of who that person is, what has motivated them to come up with this idea, and then pursue this idea, to the point where they're trying to make it a business or organization. And so if that Ashoka staffer approves after they've had the life history interview, the final review and selection is done by 3 to 6 top-level social entrepreneurs from within the Ashoka organization. And if they select you, then you're going to get the funding and tools that you need. It is important to note, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, but Bill Drayton was not looking for venture capital for organizations. Ashoka really focuses on finding individuals who have a great idea and giving them grants so that they can get this up and running, and then once they're established, then grow it into something great. Part of that work at that stage involves the design of a sustainable business model and a financial plan that can get the business up and running and then maintain a strong business model and grow into others. So that's kind of Ashoka in a nutshell, and really how Bill Drayton has been a strong innovator in this culture. So now let's go on and hear about his legacy.
Bill Drayton has invested his life in disrupting systems and bringing people together to help solve big social issues. He invites us all to see the world from his view and share in his perspective on how to make positive major changes, revolutions as he calls them. Drayton's passion for unifying people and encouraging disruption within all industries has made his mark on social entrepreneurship, one that will continue into the future. Drayton's legacy can be broken down into 3 main categories. One is a new way to work, which he refers to as change makers, a new structure, teams of teams, and also a new measure for redefining success. Change makers, according to Drayton, are people who can see the patterns around them. They identify problems in any situation and they figure out ways to solve the problem. They organize fluid teams and lead collective action. And then they continually adapt as situations change. It's more than just a way of thinking. It's an actual way to work. Peter Drucker refers to this in his readings as a sensing an opportunity. And Martin and Osping describe this as well when they talk about disrupting the equilibrium and not sticking to the everyday status quo. Drayton believes if you want society to be better, you don't have to make things easier. You have to focus on making change makers stronger. And social entrepreneurs are change makers who want to change the pattern in their field. To that end, Ashoka change makers have made great strides. 55% of them have actually changed national policy. 76% of them have changed the patterns within their industry. And 90% have had an institution who has copied their idea, which according to Drayton is the goal. That's how you increase reach and make big changes. The second concept is this new model of working in teams of teams. Instead of maintaining a traditional structure in which people work in hierarchies based on a function or a formal business unit, an organization operates as a constellation of teams that come together around specific goals. Many for-profit organizations who've tried this cluster method, such as Zappos and the game maker Steam, have been touted as innovative and cutting edge. It's the 2 heads are better than 1 theory. nonprofits have come around to the idea in a more traditional networking way. As we've discussed in the past, the possibility of competition can be much more fierce in the public sector for funding, and those organizations have been a little slower to come around to exchanging ideas, but great strides have been recently made. When Drayton was asked, how do you reach collaboration when innovation is seen as elitist, he challenges us to see the problem, imagine the solution, and listen for a really long time. This entrepreneurship methodology can bring people together to actually tip a system. Like Gao and Belfield, Drayton also believes that social entrepreneurship is closely related to innovation, and that the interface between public and private sectors is fertile ground for innovation through collaborative efforts. As we've been discussing over the past several weeks, most social issues are complex, and bringing together teams of teams who have expertise in various areas is, according to Drayton, the only way to solve big social issues. He emphasizes the demand that private companies must be part of the solution to funding social programs and helping address major social issues. Finally, he talks about we must redefine success by using new measures. So he challenges followers to look at what percentage of 12 to 15-year-olds know that they're change makers, and what proportion of the stakeholders in youth and school programs know their programs are failures or successes. So Drayton tells us that it's imperative we prepare kids with the skills they're going to need to succeed in the world where change makers are the future. He encourages youth organizations to put in place countless student groups so every person has a chance to get involved in being part of this concept of having the ability to change things. Drayton refers to this as a call for action, an encouragement, an empowerment, so people age up in this environment where change is thought of as good and necessary. Drayton's research showed that those people starting something in their teens were 4 times as likely to be C-level managers within organizations and 5 times as likely to be a founder. The failure to empower people creates a divided society, he says, and if we create a we versus them politics, we get what we have today. The one single factor that determines society's success is the percentage of change makers within it. Drayton's passionate about imparting his legacy on the world because he believes change makers will change the world. He draws the picture that collaboration is key and teaching empowerment is a required skill for the future. Change making requires both skill and courage, and we can't fall for symptoms. We must start to envision solutions and work toward them together.